Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brand. Join me, my regular co-host, the excellent James Rhodes, on this Monday morning. For those of you watching on our YouTube channel, I have not slept at all last night, so I know I'm always a Debbie Downer on this podcast, so I'll get this out of the way quick. Of something in my personal life, which has been pretty tragic, not death or anything, but something bad that I had to take care of. So, I'm exhausted, mate. But the consummate professional that I am, here I am showing up as usual.
Aren't
How
you, aren't,
how was your weekend?
it was okay. Aren't you so thankful that you have Manchester United to cheer you up in the dark times?
No days off, bro. Oh yeah, no, yeah, it is. Screw
Oh
up, mate.
no, my
Just
weekend was
fucking
okay. My
screw you up
weekend
like
was
a fortnight
okay.
in Chernobyl. Um, yeah. Big United drew, of course, this weekend. A game that has lots of talking points. There's lots of stuff going on at United right now. Obviously, the Lammens situation, the Hojlund situation. Um, the transfer window's got what 6 days left. Um, so a lot will happen there. Some other news. Talk about Ruben Amorim and whether is it reasonable to be asking questions? Not saying he should be sacked,
hmm
but
Yeah.
time to offer a bit of uh, an appraisal at this point, where we can say, I remember his quote when he first took over, saying, "If we don't change now, in a
Yeah.
year from now, we'll be in exactly the same position." Well, we're about to hit September. He said that at the end of October
hmm
or November, October, November, around about there. We're 10 months into that 12. So,
Yeah.
Jamesy, let's talk about the game at the weekend. What was your thoughts?
Well, I actually did one of the most painful things that you do, which is to rewatch the entire game this morning. I did because yesterday I was very, very upset about it. I was very mad about it. I was very frustrated with it. Probably more than you should be in a 1-1 draw where you miss a penalty as well, and really should have won in that instance. Um, but I think everybody's very frustrated now. When I rewatch the match itself and look at it, um, I feel as though my initial emotional response to how the game went was a bit too much, to be quite honest. The rewatch of it only kind of confirmed for me United weren't great, but they definitely should have won that game, almost undoubtedly. Now, we're kind of at this odd stage a little bit at this point in time where I think we're all looking at performances and things like that and saying we don't want to see the same thing week in and week out, right? Like we don't want to see the same problems that we've seen before. We don't want to see the same issues we've seen before. We want to see that things have changed because even with results, you can get a one-off result. And I said that, there's too much still. We're still talking about should have won and should have done this and should have done that, which is very frustrating. There's issues. There's definitely issues.
So, yeah, that's the shoot of one thing.
Yeah.
Now, I always felt that the Fulham game would define the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
what was that performance just a one-off in a big game, or was that performance indicative of what we're going to see throughout the rest of the season? I think the Fulham game was always going to be, at the very least, the game that would answer that question. It wasn't the answer we were looking for. Whether United should have won or not, yes, Bruno Fernandes misses a penalty that United should be taking. You see, United team doesn't score goals, so you get
Yeah.
a penalty. That's a godsend. Should have taken it from a Bruno Fernandes. I might add, James, for the first time. I think I've seen him in games before where his head isn't in it, but and maybe I'm connecting the dots wrong here, but the Saudi stuff resurfaced right before the game, and the speculation extrapolated that out was there was a positive response from Fernandez in that in being open to that move. Then goes out and plays where he didn't look like his head was in the game, and yeah, obviously missed the penalty. And James, we're sitting here talking about should have and all that, but Ruben Amorim needs to win football games, and he needs.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and look, it's like it's always hard to delineate the line between what makes what the manager's responsible for and what they're not, right? In terms of what happens on the pitch. Of course. No, of course,
Yeah.
right? Like it's really easy to judge managers on one-off games when in reality you can't. Whereas over the long period is when you really judge coaches and managers. But when you take it on a game by game basis, if I look at, all right, well, if we won yesterday, does that mean we're good? And we draw, does that mean we're bad? Like obviously it doesn't swing particularly that much. What I looked at with it overall, my feelings on it were that one, yeah, Bruno had probably the worst game at United I've actually ever seen from him in his entire career at United. It was that bad, especially in the rewatch. And it was very weird too. It wasn't just bad. I mean, Bruno missing a penalty is as unusual as it gets, right? To some degree. Now, so I was reminded, I think the last time he missed a penalty, Solskjaer got sacked like the next day or something like that against Aston Villa. So maybe, in the Prem anyway, I think that's right. But there's a very odd thing with that where it looked very much like his head, you would imagine at that time, was very distracted. This time, I think very distracted. And that's why it was really weird when I watched him in the game. I apologize if this hits close to home at the moment because you've been up all night dealing with something, but he looked like a person who's at their place of work that something awful happened overnight. And that's what they're thinking about when they're playing and what they're thinking about when they're working or what they're thinking about when they're doing something else. Like there was a moment after he misses the penalty, he's standing on the ball talking to people, and a player just walks right up to him and takes it from under his feet in the middle of a game. There's a moment where I'm watching him after a corner, and there's a player running free, and he's kind of just like scratching his nose and walking, and not, and like there's not. It was weird, like a player who looks completely in a like they're not even present. It was very, very strange. I'm not trying to.
James.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Spurs away game, the Sancho, Marcus Rashford, where Sancho got dropped right before it? I didn't know anything about what was going on then, but I remember tweeting, Marcus Rashford looks like a player that's had promises broken to him. I'll come to find out later on that was exactly. Bruno Fernandes looks like a player that no longer believes what United have been telling him about competing this summer and bringing this player. I don't know. I assume he was given assurances when he declined that offer to Saudi a month ago or 2 months ago, but he looks like a player. Like, I mean, you've heard some of the comments that have been made in preseason and stuff from the likes of Bruno Fernandes and about bringing in new players, how United need to invest, they need to continue to improve. And, they have bought decent players, Cunha, Sesko, and Bumo, of course, but it's not enough. And concerning to me, James, I remember when Arne Slot last season, I think it was the second game of the season against Ten Hag, where he elucidated how they attacked United through the wing backs, and how United would get caught out, and it was pretty easy to isolate them one-on-one at the back with Salah and stuff. And here we have Fulham coming out and pointing out such an obvious flaw and weakness in United's team that they were able to exploit. So now Ruben Amorim has a choice. Does he continue with that this weekend or against Grimsby? Grimsby's irrelevant, but next weekend, or does he listen to that criticism and change? Does he look weak if he changes? To me, that midfield is so obviously threadbare that even if it looks like you're doing it because Fulham called you out on it, you should still do it.
Well, I again, in rewatching it, I looked at it, and I think like one of the things that I think is that I don't necessarily like is like, every manager will sit there and say, this is my brilliant tactic that won this game. It's like, Thomas Frank could come out and say how Tottenham keep beating Pep Guardiola at the Etihad like over and over and over again because it keeps happening, right? And say, well, he could probably describe in 2 sentences how they beat City. suck them in, go long. It's like that's how you beat City for the last 5 years, right? Everybody can do it. That doesn't every team is going to have a tactic going into the game. If it works, you look smart saying you've succeeded in it. If it doesn't work, you keep your mouth shut and don't say what you tried to do that didn't work. It's like success has many fathers and failure is a poor orphan. It's like that's kind of how these things are approached.
This is what I love about players. Player scores a hat trick. They don't ever turn around and say, "Oh, I was all the manager."
Exactly, right.
Lose,
so it's
he's lost the dressing room, right?
Right. Well, was it then, Mark? I'm saying, like, was it Marco Silva's fault that they gave up a penalty, that Cunha hit the post and Cunha missed a one-on-one? Like, he's responsible for those failures too. You know.
There is some culpability there because there's
no. Don't get me wrong. There is.
Yeah, because if you play a certain style with certain players, the probability you're going to make these mistakes are much higher because you're not
correct. So the problem I had with the problem I was saying there that I have with Amorim in this game, and where I say, well, how do you draw the line on what a manager is responsible for or not? Is there is a weakness in there. And it is massively exacerbated by playing Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro together in that midfield. And he chose that, right? He chose that. He's chosen that midfield. He chose that to start. He chose that to play in these games. He made those decisions. He made the subs. He's made the player choices. He could see, I'm sure, as much as any of us, Bruno Fernandes' head being out of the game. Why can't he sub him off?
Yeah, why didn't he take him off?
Why? Why not? That's the biggest, most baffling thing to me. Bruno was not in it the whole game. Why can't he sub him off? And especially when you do have Kobbie Mainoo on the bench, why can't he sub him off?
No.
Because when he says they're in competition, that's fine. But then if one's bad in that game, then use the competition.
When does Mainoo get his chance? What does Bruno Fernandes have to do to be taken off or put out of the team? Look, the Mainoo situation, James, is worrying.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing with Amorim, right? Amorim has never had a purple patch, a honeymoon period.
Sure.
When I was second season with Ten Hag, what was convincing me that he might be worth keeping is the fact that he'd had a purple patch. He'd had a really good. He'd shown that he can get a team on the pitch that plays attractive football that wins games. He shown he can do that. Ruben Amorim has never done that, James. Now, there's certain things I have concern. One, Kobbie Mainoo, if Kobbie Mainoo doesn't play, United will almost certainly this season lose the statistic of having a youth player in their squad. Now, you could argue that's gimmicky anyway, right? That at some point that has to go. And if the objective becomes the stat, just make sure we get a youth player in the squad no matter what. And it's a worthless stat anyway. The stat only means something because you've been able to produce players good enough to play at that level. Rather, you know what I mean?
You have Tom Heaton who can keep that stat going forever, by the way, if we want it.
But it's a departure from United's core principles and values. So if you sack Ruben Amorim, which I don't think they should, you not need to get a manager that plays exactly like him because this is how you built your squad. So now you've got to get a 3-5-2 manager in because, or however you want a 3-4-3, however you play this. And to me, it's like I'm looking for a reason to believe and trust because I want him to work and I think he's an exceptional coach. But Jim, I'm really struggling to find things that gives me confidence that says this guy, like, if we're sitting here after 4 or 5 games without a win, what? And that's very possible, James. Like, now what?
Yeah. Well, look, I agree with that. I actually do. I figured that, look, if you started this summer, then you'd say, all right, one summer window, a couple of games. Okay, fine. You would still expect the manager to start winning some games in their first 5-10 games, that they start to rack up some wins, even if it's their first season. Now, he's got this extra 6-month period that I'm not washing it away, but I do know that managers coming in mid-season more often than not doesn't work out very well. But it's been painted as advantageous, right? To learn what you need, to learn what you need to know, to get a head start. So I'm looking at him like he's not in his second season, but he's not in his first season either. It's like it's in the middle, right? It's in the middle. So you've got some leeway, but not a lot. Not a lot of rope here.
Yeah,
And I look at it like my feeling is that by November, I know by November, December.
But we're not asking him to win the league.
Yeah,
We're just
correct.
asking him not to do worse than the guy that
Correct.
gets sacked. That's all you have to do. With the players that Ten Hag has, Ten Hag was in a certain position with these players that got him the sack. You now have the same players. Your job is to make sure you don't do worse than the previous guy. I understand they're his players, right?
Yeah.
So what you can't do this at Wolves or anywhere else. You can't turn around and say last season was a write-off. And don't worry. Like if you look at the stats, James, I'm going to pull them up here on my phone.
Oh no, they're terrible.
I mean, no Man United player scored v Fulham. No Man United player scored v Arsenal. Ericsson and Ahmad scored v Aston Villa. No United player scored v Spurs. No United player scored v Chelsea. No United player scored v West Ham. In the last, just one of the last 6 competitive games, United have one scorer. In 29 games, Ruben Amorim has 28 points. He 29 Premier League matches, 28 points, 3 wins out of our last 17. Ipswich, Leicester, and Villa. Only 1 game in the last 5 where our player. This is unacceptable, James. I don't care if that's Alex Ferguson with that record. That's unacceptable, and there is zero mitigation for Ruben Amorim having that record. Now, if you want to talk about not winning the league or not being on top 4, fine, but not that. No.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why wins have to start. They have to. I have my questions because I looked at it and said, I think there's things he got plenty wrong in yesterday's game where it would have taken to me what was a should have won to a would have won, if certain things were there. Like, again, the decision to leave Bruno Fernandes on made no sense to me. You could see that he was off. Mm-hmm. He misses a penalty. He loses his runner for the goal. It doesn't happen if you make that change. It's a direct causation of 2 goals, a 2-goal swing in that game. And you have to culpable in that. Oh, Dalot was very, very culpable. Don't get me wrong on that. Dalot was very culpable. He loses the ball in an awful position. But I'll tell you where for me, in rewatching it, where Ruben Amorim gets it wrong. 2 minutes before that, Marco Silva subs on Smith Rowe. And what Smith Rowe does immediately after coming on is sit next to Bruno and make the run as soon as he can to get into the box to score that goal. And he loses them. And Bruno was making that mistake all game. And the point is, for me, it's like players can have bad games. The manager's job usually is to mitigate that. That's what they can do during a game, right? They can't predict necessarily if a player is going to perform poorly or if a player is going to perform well. But if a player is having a bad game, if a player is making errors, they have to try to mitigate that. He could have made a change there, especially with Kobbie Mainoo being on the bench. Oh, I can't hear you. Sorry. Oh, no, it's still.
Sorry, yeah, he could have made a change. But to me, James, he got such obvious things wrong in both games, right? The first game, you can see in the first half, United don't have the requisite numbers at the top end of the field, right?
Yeah.
Has to make the change.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have played Bayern. If Tom Heaton is in goal, I don't think that goal happens.
Oh, the other factor in that for sure was that Bayern on those corners.
James, it is
so bad. I cannot fathom how that affects the team. Like, just how bad that was.
I'm not being being a parnickers here or exaggerating. It actually might be the worst I've seen on professional football. I have never seen someone so calamitous. Like,
it was on the ground every time the corner came in.
It looks like Diana Ross doing that or something, right? Across, like if your granny was in that's at the park. No. You go toward the ball, right? You actually, and instead, the way he comes for the ball, he just looks like a total liability. You're getting a corner, you're like, this is as good as a penalty. When I was saying someone marked Bayern on corners, I meant he's the most dangerous player in the fucking box. Not their striker, Bayern. Someone put a player on him.
Yeah. Now look, they're buying Lammens, but
I was going to Lammens.
Yeah.
Why did Lammens be saying before Arsenal? Because what we know now, we knew before Arsenal. James, before Arsenal, I said, don't lose to an in-swinging corner over the keeper's head. How did How did we have to have the loss against Arsenal for Lammens to happen?
And they've been following him for 6 months.
Yeah, they
It's
did a
not like
thing
this
for
is
him.
new. Yeah, they've been following him for 6 months. I don't know why they waited till then. I really don't, actually. I can't answer that question. I do know that it was put forward by a number of people all year that they needed a new keeper, right? That they needed a backup keeper. I know it for an absolute certainty. I didn't stop talking about it all last season. They had talks with James Trafford, who went to City. They've had talks with multiple other keepers throughout the year to look for someone to get in and get into that goalkeeping unit because they didn't have confidence in them. I don't know why it took till the end of summer after the first game to make that call. I don't have the answer for that. I do know they knew it. I don't have the answer for why they waited till then to do it, because I think if you have a new keeper in for the first two, and this is, again, it's like, it does get annoying with these ifs, right? Because these are like the we said we don't want to go into seasons where we constantly have excuses, right? We constantly have reasons why things can't work. The keeper is a genuine reason why the first two games have not gone to expectations, because they've had a direct, measurable impact on the outcome of both games with some of the worst performances we've seen. That's annoying. It's one of those things that it's like, well, that's what you have to deal with, right? How would it have been without him? But I'm tired of the ifs, and that's why it's disappointing to not have it done before. Because if you had a different keeper in net against Arsenal and against Fulham, I think you have a different result as well.
Yeah. The thing is, James, there's enough of buying there and Onana's body of work to know that what happened on the first game of the season against Arsenal was a decent probability. If he'd never done something like that before, I agree with what you were saying earlier. You can't blame Amorim for random human errors and everything.
Yep.
But when someone's repeating the same error, that's not a random mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weakness. That's a major flaw. And they target him. You've got Arsenal and you've got Fulham that are targeting him on corners. Every time a corner comes in, right, you're a bundle of nerves, right?
Yep.
And that goal I said that last week too. That goal should have never happened. That should have been left behind in last season, because these are things that are being party, like, James. You're not seeing this somewhere else.
Yep.
And we talked about this a month ago. The imperative for United to get a goalkeeper.
Yep.
Now we're getting a 23-year-old from Belgium. Might be a good keeper. I hope he is. But I remember when United signed Onana, how important it was that they signed him at the start of July to bet him into a team so that you can integrate him into how you play from the back. That's a very important key position. When is this kid going to be ready to play? Every single game you need to start buying there or Onana with, they're a liability. Now Onana goes to the African Cup of Nations, don't he, in January?
Yeah.
So if they hadn't got Lammens, what's the options there in January? Buying there, Heaton, like, they had to get this. They should have got him before. I assume that they didn't, because they were allocating that money to Baliba.
I think so too. Yeah. Because that only was off like the Friday before Arsenal, when they've kind of officially figured out they can't do that. And then a few days later, they made the move for him. So I assume that that's the reason as well. I don't know for sure, but it looks fairly likely that they were saying, hey, we're trying to put every dollar we have in space towards seeing if we can get a top midfielder in instead of this keeper. And when that didn't go through, then they decided, hey, let's go do the keeper then, which is fine in a sense. I wish it would have been earlier, but I don't know all the ins and outs of the finances. I know obviously that how slow the sales have been has certainly not helped the situation on that front, which they're, again, they were responsible for some of that as well, no doubt about that. But regardless, I think that's the reason. And hopefully he's ready quickly. I mean, he's been playing. He was left out on Sunday from Antwerp's lineup, but he's been playing. I mean, he's ready to play football, that's for sure. So it should be a pretty quick transition. I mean, a keeper, I get there's things a keeper has to learn, but when you look at what they're asked to do in Ruben Amorim's team, it's not that complicated. Sit in the box, catch the damn ball when it comes in, and kick it away. Like it's not that hard.
Mate, just absolutely, you could stick a Hasbro and that's right, and they would be doing better than the clowns that we have, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, anyone, I'm still surprised at them not giving Tom Heaton a go. But beyond that, he left Onana out. That was a big call, right? Because
it was, yeah.
You can get away with the first game, okay, maybe he was injured, wasn't 100% for Arsenal, but the second one, that is a very clear decision. Is he trying to say to Amorim what he's saying to Hojlund? You won't play. Let's leave.
I kind of got that feeling. I speculated that before that. I said, look, we're talking about there's two options. Is one, they're trying to force him out to say, look, I think one, showing up to preseason unfit and not really being fit for the start of the year was really unimpressive after they kind of backed him in the middle of the off season. Then to show up and not be able to train all summer is kind of crazy. As a keeper, like, come on, man, how do you get a muscle injury as a keeper without actually playing football?
2 seasons you've just had, mate. Maybe you don't want to add on that scale a little more of you being shade, and maybe you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, give me a reason to believe.
I think that was unimpressive, and then I think that there's two options here, which is number one, get him to look to a leave because he's been turning moves down and there has been options out there and he's wanted to stay in Manchester. That's one option. Option two is making it extremely damn clear you're not the number one goalkeeper anymore. Maybe they think that'll motivate him to perform better. I don't know that it's going to work, but I get it. If he's going to stay, you want to use what you can to try to motivate a player to perform, right?
That's a fair point, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's going to make any difference, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the Hayes' best seasons, James, they came with a quality number 2 right behind him.
Yes,
right?
With Romero, yeah.
Because they were pushing him. There was legitimate competition for places. I remember interviewing Frans Hoek, United's goalkeeping coach under Van Gaal. And he was talking, obviously, because, they had Victor Valdez as well, and then Romero and what have you, about how that brought the best out of De Gea because he was being challenged, right?
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that will happen with Onana, but Onana might need a quality backup number 2. If I'm Lammens, I'm looking at that position and going, this football club doesn't have a number 1, right? I'm not coming here as a number 2. That number 1 shirt's up for grabs, but whoever gets it, if it's Onana with the quality Lammens in behind him, that could bring a consistency and improvement out of Onana. But to me, just what you were saying, like, you've had 2 horrendous seasons at Manchester United. Yep. The one thing you don't do is grow more weeds that you have to pull. Show up in a physical condition that shows you're taking it serious. Don't ask for another concession from the club. Because you have no equity left.
Correct.
To me, like, after those 2 seasons, you should have been coming into United desperate to prove a point, coming into training early, in my opinion, instead of finding a way to make it permissible to yourself to show up out of shape. Like, that was a choice.
Yep. Agreed 100%. And so I guess we'll see. I think it's more a motivation tactic than anything else to hope that he'll improve, because it's better to have 2 good keepers than 1. But I'm pretty positive Lammens will come in pretty quickly and have the starting job for because they're buying one for a reason. And the fact that Onana isn't playing now means right now you just have to be better than Bayindir to get into the starting spot, which should be pretty easy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's way open. Look, when I look at those 2 goalkeepers, they have to go, James. It's such an obvious flaw, weakness in that team. I look at other positions inside United, Rasmus Hojlund. So Rasmus Hojlund, someone that's very close to Napoli, from what I understand.
Yeah, right. They're on the verge of being done, yeah.
Now, Alexander Isak and all that have been pummeled for their conduct. But Manchester United, just like other football clubs, are more than happy to consign players to not train them with the first team squad, with the under 18s, whatever, once they don't want you. In fact, if they went as far to claim they're a bomb squad, like, that's fucked up. Like, you don't do that. They're footballers. They're not lepers. They're not bomb technicians. They're not, bombers. They're not. These are your football players you're trying to sell, and you're going to label them with something toxic. Is that? I know it got done by the media, but United should have been out in front of that immediately. No. Because there's going to be a bunch of footballers in United squad who are included, looking at those guys, going, "This is how they'll treat me. If this is permissible, with the club's values and principles, and doesn't violate them, then that is an example of what lies ahead. Like, that would concern me. So to me, like, we're very quick to get on players' blacks when they go on strike in that club. Hojlund, I have a feeling they may at some point regret it, but Chelsea regretted Salah. Chelsea regretted De Bruyne. Liverpool, or
I mean, even Lukaku the first time, right? Chelsea, right? They even bought him back. Yeah.
They had to accept that these players can go on and become exceptional players somewhere else, but that doesn't mean that we can't be an exceptional football team. You have to, so United have to be comfortable with Hojlund going somewhere else and being a superstar, because that's a different question than is he good enough for Manchester United.
Correct, exactly. And it's the same thing I see with Scott McTominay. Like, it's wonderful the career he's had at Napoli. We had enough body of work for him at United to say there was probably like it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work in the same way.
And it's pterodactyl or something. What the fuck? I thought that was a Luftwaffe coming in there and fucking. Sorry, man.
But just it's okay. You're right. It's okay for players to leave and do well elsewhere. It happens to every single club. Every single club sells players that go on and are successful at other clubs. As long as you do the right things on your own, it works, because you're not, every player doesn't work for every single club, every environment, every coach, every system, every manager. It just doesn't work that way. And so it's just a different situation, in how you look at it.
I also think that people think that, like, creating certain environments is an exact science. It's not. Like, there's a lot of certain type of fortune, right? Where you get the right people at the right time to connect, where you get the right moments, and then that builds and builds and builds. But, Ferguson with Cantona wasn't someone that the scouts in the football, department scouted forensically. It just was a random moment of chance. What about Cantona? Cantona comes in and then completely transforms a football club, because he's the one. You get autocatalysis at 16 molecular bonds. It's the same thing that you get. Once you get it self-sustaining, you get recursion. It replicates and it grows and it grows and it grows, and then it's a bit of luck, because nobody knows how to get 22 human beings to be in concert with each other, synchronicity with each other. Fucking take a look at your marriage, right? Most of us don't want to be with ourselves, and we exchange vows with someone that 3.5 days out of the week, right? We want to batter them, or they want to batter us, whatever, right? And
that's one person.
But that's what a loving relationship looks like with a human being. Is you have ups and downs, and then to me, the idea that a human being can get from an exact science 22 players to cooperate and synchronize is bullshit. Like, we just don't know how to. Some of it's luck, to be fair.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot of down to the individuals, that just happen to get on the same page and sort it out. But yeah, I mean, it is, and hopefully it's something we see grow. I mean, on all of this, at the end of it, United have to start winning games, like we said, and we have to see the relationship between the players improve. We have to see the relationship between the players and the manager improve. We have to see the performances improve. We have to see wins, and I think where we are today after the Fulham one, to a degree, it's like, all right, a draw away and all of these things. Usually you'd respond, maybe feel a little bit differently if it was in different kind of circumstances. But there really is no rope, especially after the last few seasons we've had. What none of us want to see is another bad start. None of us want to be in a situation where it's October and United are in 12th, 15th still, and they're nowhere near it. And we're talking about what do we do, and having these same kind of debates and discussions and things like that. The fact of the matter is, with what they've spent, with what they've put together, with the time that they've had, with everything, I think it's fair to say, this is my own standards on this, that United need to be in the European places before Christmas. Like they need to be in those spots, like
I
firmly
agree.
in those spots before Christmas. If we get to that November international break, the same one, a year ago, Ten Hag lost this job, and United are sitting in the bottom half, then you're going to have the same serious questions because it's been enough time by that point in time. And you don't have to win that many games to be in these positions. You really don't. You can win 50% of your games and be in European positions. And that's what United have to do.
Yeah, look, by the midterms, James, we have enough data to make an inference. We'll be able to look at what is going on by January and say, okay, maybe we're 10th. We might be 5th by the end of the season, but we might be 15th.
Yeah.
We can see enough now to make an appraisal on what the future is going to look like.
Yeah.
And Ruben Amorim badly needs a purple patch that Ten Hag got in his first season, where it all just starts to come together. And a draw against Fulham is just, is irrelevant in the grander scheme of things because you're winning other games, you're playing well. He badly, because he hasn't had that. Every other United manager's had a moment where they look like United
that
manager.
gives belief, and then buys you the time you need to keep those ideas together. Yeah.
All right, man, I can only afford your appearance fee for another 60 seconds. So before you go, my friend, quick Grimsby prediction.
I hope that obviously we go with a bit of a different team. Benjamin Šeško gets going. Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte should be starting there, and I think they should start at the weekend as well. Again, I think that's one of the biggest complaints that I have is for everything that's been said, picking your least physical midfield doesn't particularly make sense to me, given what United have been focusing on for a while. Start Kobbie, start Šeško, start Ugarte, get Maguire in there as well as a start to give some rest to De Ligt. And then go with the play. If they win that game and they're building confidence and playing well, go with it again at the weekend against Burnley. But I think they'll win handily against Grimsby, but just get it right and get some momentum in the team here.
Yeah, if they lose, it'll be Armageddon.
It's over, man. It's an unjustifiable loss. I don't care what point it is in the season.
I don't know, James. There's still, to me, looks like a lot of unrest at United. The Onana situation, I know you have to go here. Onana situation, Bruno Fernandes, all that. There's still, I couldn't tell you with confidence the next time we record that Fernandes and Onana will be United players. I don't know.
I guess we'll see.
All right, matey, we'll leave it there. Thanks to all of you for all your downloads, retweets, shares, and support, subscriptions, all that. Very, very much appreciated. We'll be back again. What day is it today? Monday? I don't even know what day it is.
Maybe Thursday, maybe next Monday. Yeah.
Back on Thursday. If I'm still alive, we'll see.
Yeah.
That is not a guarantee. All right, matey. I'll see you later. Cheers, James.
Thank you.
Bye.